I'm in a very unusual position here, guys, because this particular brand here, I've had several of their watches on the channel, and I've got to be honest, they've been quite good. The quality's been good, the design's been unique, but what I've got here in my hand, it doesn't look or feel like it's from the same company, and that's strange. And even the case finishing and the quality control is at subpar level, and I don't understand that. Now, I'm in a difficult position here, guys, because I really don't like bagging watches, and this one here, although the design is quite unique, I just feel that they've really let this watch down in the area of execution. So without further ado, let's flip the camera, let's check out this Nove. It's got a few things going for it, but generally, gee, I really am disappointed, and I want to share my thoughts on this watch. Let's check it out. Now, I really don't understand what's happened with this watch, because for me it looks like a watch that slipped through quality control without really being checked. Because there's dust on the dial, there's dust on the underside of the crystal, there's some strange anomalies on the inner rotating bezel. So it's got quite a few things that I don't understand how it's passed through QC, but that's not the problem. The case finishing, the bracelet finishing, it really leaves a lot to be desired. So for me, this is a Nove by name, but I don't see it as the same quality of watch that I've received from this company in the past, and I'm going to share my thoughts on that. Now, you saw the pop-up at the start of this video. Nove has sponsored this video. The watch has been sent out without the need to be returned. So I will of course leave a link in the description section of this video if you want to check out this watch or any of their other watches. Now, looking at the specifications of this watch, I measure a case diameter of 41.4 and a case height of 13.3. The lug to lug is 47.3 and a lug width of 22. Now, both crowns are 6.8 millimeters. They are screw down crowns, and the watch offers 200 meters of water resistance. And the total weight on the supplied bracelet sized to my 18 centimeter wrist, I measure exactly 139 grams. Now, the wearability of the watch is actually quite good. So ergonomically, the way this watch wears, I haven't had an issue with. Even though the finishing, as I mentioned, is not up to par, the comfort is actually very good. Now, the bracelet itself has a taper from 22 to 20. It really doesn't seem to be a good quality bracelet, because if you have a look, there's quite a bit of play in there. There's brushing as well as high polish sections, and honestly guys, the quality just doesn't seem to be there. And I'm only comparing it to the previous watches that I've received from this company. They will finish so much better than this. Looking at that clasp, you've got a milled swivel, a very thin press clasp, and a fold over, and you've also got micro adjustability. A combination of that swivel and that clasp, it's a mismatch. That's really cheap. It feels cheap, it looks cheap, it's very thin. So I really don't understand what's going on there. Now, I did mention that the finishing of this watch is not up to par. And if you look at the side profile, the transition between the polished bevel and vertical brushing on the side is bleeding into one another, and the quality just really is not there. So I'm really trying to understand how this quality has passed through QC and it ended up on my desk. It really doesn't make sense. And I'm only saying that because I know the previous watches that have come from this brand. This is nothing like them. Because looking closer to that dial, I've cleaned this crystal a million times because of dust marks. And those marks are not on the top of the crystal, they're on the underside. They're also on the dial itself. I really don't like bagging watches. I'll tell you about the gripes, but this watch has really left me wanting in a lot of areas. Now, that said, I removed the bracelet from the watch and placed it on a generic rubber strap, and the wearability and comfort factor are fantastic. So the watch wears well, it is comfortable, and it functions well. I'm just trying to get my head around the quality control as well as the overall quality of this timepiece. Nonetheless, moving on, the watch offers a double dome sapphire crystal. As you can see, it's a very high dome. It has blue anti-reflective coating, although it's been a little bit of an annoyance having blue on black as a distraction. As far as its functionality goes, it's done its job, and there's been no washout on that dial, so that's been fine. Now, turning the watch over, you can see another dome sapphire crystal, and underneath that sapphire is a Sellita SW200. Around 41 hours power reserve, hacking, hand winding, and this one here, it's been running rock solid at around +3 seconds per day, so in that regard I've got no issues. Now, Let's have a look at that bezel. You got a fixed external bezel, as you can see, with lume plots at every hour. Also, you've got an internal rotating bezel, which is controlled by a screw down crown. And if we unscrew that crown, as you can see, it releases the bezel. We can line it up and you can basically time things, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and so forth. You can latch it down, lock it in place, and away you go. Now, the only problem I find with this, if you're timing something, all of a sudden your time reading experience is off. Because if you notice where I've set it, the minute markers don't line up with the external. So if you want to really get an accurate time gauge reading on this, you generally use the markers at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock to get a gauge on time. But for accuracy, you really have to put it back in its place as such, and now you've got those minute markers back. So bear that in mind. There's a double function here, but you do lose the ideal accuracy when you adjust that bezel for timing things. I just feel that the tolerances from this watch are not the same as the previous models that I've received from this brand, and unfortunately that's really let me down. Nonetheless, moving on, there are some positives of this watch, and one of them is that lume. And for me, I use one word to describe this lume, and that is superb. It's Super Luminova C3. It's bright, it's legible, it's functional. I think in that department they've spared no expense, so that's a pretty good thing. And lastly, the price. The watch comes in at $880 and I honestly don't feel that the quality of what I've got here in my hand is not $880. It really isn't. I know you got a Swiss movement, but honestly the case finishing, the quality of that bracelet, the quality of that clasp, even the QC, the marks internally, it's really let this watch down. And I basically don't have a gripes section for this video because the whole review has been pretty much about gripes, and that's a damn shame. So Nove, if you're listening, I've reviewed some of your watches. I've never complained about the quality of finishing or the case or the execution. What's happened with this watch? If you guys have changed case manufacturers and suppliers, my only advice is change it back. Because for me, although this is offering a slightly different design and you're not copying other brands, which I like, with innovation, there's also much room for improvement. And unfortunately, this watch is screaming for some attention and tender loving care. So hit me up in the comments, guys. Let me know what you think about this brand or even this watch. So thanks for watching. Be well, be safe. Enjoy the watch that's on your wrist. Continue to enjoy this hobby, guys. And we'll see you in the next one.